The second summer banner of 2018 is here, and it's called a Sketchy Summer. I'm not entirely sure why it's called that, but that's okay because we only care about these new units. This banner features Summer Young Tiki, Summer Linde, Summer Takumi, and Summer Camilla. For each of these units, I'll be covering their stats, new weapons, and skills, and we'll talk about some builds you can try out. Timestamps are at the bottom, so skip around if you want. Let's get started. Our first new hero is Summer Linde, who after not being on a banner for so long now has a nice new ult. Interestingly, she is also the game's first dagger cavalry unit. We've had a few cavalry archers, but now the power of debuffs is ready to be spread using the wide 3 movement range of horses. As a ranged cavalry unit, Linde's stats are a bit low overall, however she makes sure to stack her offensive stats first. With 33 HP, 16 defense, and 26 resistance, Summer Linde is probably one of the most fragile units in the game. She can be one-shot by many physical damage dealers. Hopefully, she can avoid hits to take advantage of her pretty decent 34 attack and 35 speed. Both are good among other dagger units. Luckily, as a cavalry unit, Summer Linde has easy access to hone on fortified cavalry, so she can be quite scary. So the second batch of summer weapons for this year have a pretty cool effect. Summer Linde's Starfish Plus, Summer Takumi's Fishy Bowl Plus, and Summer Camilla's Juicy Wave Plus all have Desperation 3. This means when under 75% HP, these weapons allow any follow-up attacks to be used consecutively. It does not grant free follow-up attacks, however. Desperation is a really powerful B skill, and having it on a weapon means you can use another powerful B skill in its place. You can try the Brash Assault Desperation combo, and you have the freedom to run a B skill or Sacred Seal depending on where you use Brash Assault. You can try Vantage, Wings of Mercy, Chill Speed, or even Breaker skills. If you get below 75% HP and stay above 50% HP, you can actually use the follow-up from Breaker skills to proc Desperation, a neat but not super reliable interaction. The drawback to these weapons is that you do actually need to get to less than 75% HP for these weapons to do anything special. These weapons will require some setup to be effective. Moving on to the rest of Linde's base kit, I would usually skip over Ardent Sacrifice, but it actually plays a very nice role for Linde. Remember how she wants to get into Desperation range, but Linde is pretty squishy? Well, one use of Ardent Sacrifice puts Linde at less than 75% HP. This is crucial since you can set Linde up for Desperation from Starfish Plus without having her fight and possibly dying. Now her B skill is Cancel Affinity, which is so darn niche that most of the time it's just not worth using. I would swap it out for something more useful. While not a new series of skills, Brazen Attack and Resistance is a new combination for the Brazen skill line. The plus 7 attack and resistance is a combat buff, so it can stack with field buffs like Hone Attack. It also synergizes really well with these summer weapons because if you're under 75% HP, then obviously you're also under 80% HP too. With Hone Cavalry and Brazen Attack and Resistance active, Summer Linde will be able to hit incredibly hard, and she has Desperation to sweep through enemies. Brazen Attack and Speed is the better pure offensive option, but you gotta work with what you have. Regardless, Linde will appreciate the plus 7 attack buff for offense or defense use. Here's an example build based around using Ardent Sacrifice to set up. Refine the Starfish Plus for extra speed and give Linde either Moonbow or Luna. Replace Cancel Affinity with Vantage and pair with double Savage Blow skills. As we mentioned, Linde is very squishy, so if she can get off one Ardent Sacrifice, she can be in Desperation range and Brazen range. Ideally with a Hone Cavalry buff, Linde can do a lot of damage with Desperation, keeping her safe. Optionally, you can get Brazen Attack and Speed for better results, a plus speed boon, or replace Savage Blow with a speed plus 3 Sacred Seal. Double Savage Blow is just there in the hopes that 14 chip damage is enough for Linde to one-hit KO attackers by using Vantage. Another build you could try is just a Poison Dagger Assassination build. With 3 movement, a dagger unit with Poison Dagger can be tough to deal with if you're using infantry units. The Kitty Paddle could also be used for assassinating mages. With these type of builds, you just want as much attack as possible to get one-shot kills. You could use Desperation in the B slot, but Linde is going to want to then use Life or Death or Swift Sparrow. One-shot KOs might not always be possible, so getting follow-up attacks is the next priority then. Summer Takumi is our next hero, and he's ready to join his older siblings in the sky as a flying archer. Takumi's got a pretty neat looking bow, and he is shooting fish arrows at people, which is pretty fun. Now this is our third Archer Takumi, and this one is definitely something to look out for. His defensive stats are okay with his usual 40 HP and a pretty low 21 defense and 19 resistance. However, Summer Takumi possesses what many people consider to be the best offensive spread for an archer with 35 attack and 35 speed. This is the exact same as Bride Cordelia, who is probably the best offensive infantry archer. Compared to the only other flying archer, Archer Hinoka, Summer Takumi has 3 more attack and is physically tankier, but Hinoka has a whole bunch of more resistance, meaning she can at least fight off mages decently. Just stat wise, Summer Takumi will be a very powerful archer, and his flying mobility will make him a deadly threat from the air. The Fishy Bow's Desperation effect will be good for Takumi since with his pretty low defense and resistance, he won't be surviving many hits once he does get below 75% HP. Glimmer is kind of an odd choice here, and while Takumi's attack is tied for highest among all archers, combined with the 12 might from Fishy Bow, it still doesn't even break 50 attack. I would change to Moonbow if you do want a 2-turn special. Takumi does have Fury 3, and similar to Linde's Ardent Sacrifice, Fury synergizes with these summer weapons really well. It can help Takumi get into desperation range by using the 6 recoil damage after every fight. The stat boost is also very handy since it makes Takumi even faster, and the slight boost to defense and resistance can help prevent him from getting one-shot. Summer Takumi's new C skill is Odd Resistance Wave. Like its other variants, this one only works on odd numbered turns, buffing Takumi and adjacent allies with +6 resistance. This is actually a decent skill for Takumi since with Fury 3 equipped, he can reach a respectable 28 resistance. I think he would benefit more from an attack or speed wave skill, but I still think it's a fine option, and with Fury chipping away at his HP, the extra resistance might save him if Takumi has to fight multiple times in one turn. The wave skills do require setup and forward thinking, but their self and team buffing capabilities make them strong skills. For builds, you can use most of Summer Takumi's base kit right from the start. With Desperation on his weapon and Fury 3 by default, you can run the classic combo and Takumi will become a killing machine once he dips below 75% HP. I do want to point out that with a speed refined Fishy Bow, Fury 3, and a speed +3 Sacred Seal, Takumi sits at 43 speed. Combined with 50 attack, he is already a pretty scary ranged threat. On top of his base kit, you are free to add any B skills you want. Escape Route could be a fun option to allow teleporting mobility once Takumi gets really low on HP. Like Linde, you could also try out Vanish, Wings of Mercy, or a Breaker skill, and you have a pretty functioning unit with some offensive power already. Now while Desperation 3 is cool on a weapon, I know probably most people are just going to replace the Fishy Bow with a Brave Bow or Fire Sweep Bow if you have an extra. As mentioned, Summer Takumi matches Bright Cordelia's really solid 35 attack and speed, and he can basically run the same powerful offensive builds as she can. With such high starting speed, Takumi can have a decent quad potential using a Brave Bow after getting some team speed buffs. This is a very deadly build for PvE content because most times enemies won't have distant counter and high defense, which is why this build can kind of fall off in arena. I used this setup on my own Bright Cordelia, and I'll say you definitely do not need a plus attack or plus speed boon to make it work. Summer Takumi's flying mobility does give him a pretty good advantage, and ideally he shouldn't be getting hit by other archers anyway. I expect Brave Bow builds to be the most common for this new Takumi. Moving on to Summer Camilla, it was never a question of will there be a Bikini Camilla ult, it was always a question of when will we get her. This special Camilla is still a flying unit, but this time she's a blue mage instead of green. While flying mages aren't very common in many Fire Emblem games, Camilla's starting class in Fates is one of the few flying classes that actually uses magic, so for her it's not really surprising to see her wielding at Tome. Now if you are familiar with Spring Camilla, you know that she has high attack and pretty good defense, but is incredibly slow. Summer Camilla, however, has been working out, and she is blazing fast with 36 base speed. With 33 attack, she is hands down the best offensive blue mage flyer and actually quite similar to Summer Tana. Just make sure you don't let her take too many hits since 23 defense and 19 resistance is pretty darn low overall. Camilla's base kit is decent, but it could be better. Her weapon is the Juicy Wave Plus, and again, it has the Desperation 3 effect built in. Draconic Aura is okay for Camilla, but it's probably not her best special. Deathblow 3 is kind of odd, but it is nice. I would have expected the usual Swiss Sparrow. Flyer Formation is pretty powerful, but I find myself putting it in the Sacred Seal slot rather than keeping it in the B slot most times. You may want to keep it in some form because Summer Camilla comes with Honed Flyers, which continues to be quite the elusive skill. It's a very good skill, but unfortunately Camilla really wants it for herself, so if you only have one copy, then Summer Camilla's potential is lowered a bit. Regardless, it pairs well with Flyer Formation because you can position Camilla freely around a flying team so that she can give Honed Flyers to the units that need it most. For builds, if you stick with most of her base kit, I would suggest some tweaks. Refine her Juicy Wave for speed since she wants to build a double as much as possible. Deathblow isn't ideal, but it can work if you give Camilla speed buffs. Unlike Linde and Takumi, Camilla doesn't have any way to get into desperation range other than just by getting hit. It can work, but still I think Fury 3 would be the better A skill. I think keeping Honed Flyers and Flyer Formation combo is worth it, but moving Flyer Formation to the Sacred Seal allows Camilla to run something like Lancebreaker for extra coverage. As you can probably tell by now, all three inheritable weapons and their owners can basically run the same builds. Desperation on the weapon creates some cool opportunities to pair with a new B skill, and for the most part that is how you shape each unit differently without having to completely overhaul their base kit. Now of course I'm gonna mention the Blade Tome build because it's just too good. Again, Summer Camilla really wants Honed Flyers for herself, and hopefully you can also pair her with Fortified Flyers. With a Blade Tome, Fury 3, and +6 attack buffs, Summer Camilla reaches 55 attack. You then have to add on the additional 24 points of attack coming from the Blade Tome effect, which puts her at a staggering 79 attack. She also reaches 45 speed, so if one hit wasn't enough, Camilla has a good chance of getting another shot in. If you like Emblem Team Blade Tone mages, Summer Camilla is the best blue flyer mage at the moment. Summer Tana on the first summer banner is also just as deadly, so now is the time to summon if you want a fun flying mage. Our last new hero is Summer Young Tiki, who is going to be our first new red dragon since the game's launch. She is actually a flying dragon as well, and the wings on her back are really cute. Tiki's also holding a Dragonstone popsicle, which is pretty funny, and I like how creative it is. She seems to be wearing some kind of floatie, but since she can fly, I'm not really sure why she needs one. Now, Summer Young Tiki has got some really impressive stats: 40 HP, 33 attack, 37 speed, 32 defense, and 26 resistance. It's actually pretty similar to her original version, with the exception of that massive 37 base speed. This actually makes her the fastest dragon in the game, now beating out legendary female Grima. Her high speed and balanced defense means that Tiki is going to be tough to take down, although her flyer status does make her vulnerable to arrows. Let's talk about her weapon, Summer's Breath. It's a legendary dragonstone that is effective against other dragons. Seems like that's going to be a staple for the 3 Tikis. It also grants a nice flat +3 defense, which pairs well with its effect. Before we get into that, I do want to point out that there has been an in-game notification that Summer's Breath does in fact have the adaptive damage effect against ranged units. This is important because if you wanted to give Tiki distant counter, know that she will be getting that extra damage now. Now the effect for Summer's Breath states, if an enemy initiates combat, Tiki gets special cooldown +1 per attack. This is a familiar skill to many of you. It sounds like this is a steady breath, and that would be incredibly powerful if it is. However, I think the skill description might be misleading and it might not be full on steady breath. It could work like Heavy Blade or Vengeful Fighter, and I'll show you why I think that is. So when I initially read this description, I thought Summer's Breath just worked like Heavy Blade, where only Young Tiki's attacks would get the extra special cooldown charge. But when I was reading comments, everyone was saying this was steady breath, and that raised a red flag for me. We've had steady breath in the game for a long time now, and I knew that its description was worded differently than Heavy Blade. So I went to check on my own units in game, and turns out the current description now states its special cooldown charge +1 per attack. I thought I was going crazy, but I checked the wiki and it also had a time where the description got updated. Turns out, a few updates ago, there were some description changes for some skills, and I guess Steady Breath was one of them. It definitely used to say only special cooldown charge +1, and the wiki confirmed this. As you can see on the right, I even went back to check the official intro video for Brave Ike, and the description of Steady Breath is what I thought was correct. My point is that special cooldown charge +1 is not the same as special cooldown charge +1 per attack. We already knew this because Heavy Blade does not work like Steady Breath. The per attack part is what to me signals it only grants the extra +1 special charge when the unit attacks and not when they get hit by the enemy. In my opinion, the updated description for Steady Breath is wrong and misleading when it used to be correct. So I am now not fully confident anymore about how Summer's Breath actually works. We just have to wait until people test it themselves. Sorry for getting sidetracked, but I don't want people to be disappointed if it turns out Summer's Breath doesn't work like Steady Breath. It's incredibly frustrating to see the actual game not be consistent with how skills actually work, and because of that, it then spreads misinformation, and I can't fault people because the game is the one spreading that information. So if Summer's Breath works like Steady Breath, Summer Young Tiki can stick to 2 or 4 turn specials, and she will activate them after taking 1 or 2 actions. If it works like Heavy Blade, Tiki will probably opt for 3 or 5 turn specials. Since this video has been made before the actual banner releases, I will update the description and the pinned comment when I find out how Summer's Breath actually works. Now moving on to the rest of Young Tiki's kit, we got some familiar skills. Moonbow is her special and she comes with attack and defense bond 3. This would be a very good A skill to pair with her defensive nature of Summer's Breath. Her B skill is Hit and Run, and while it's a good skill on flying units, Tiki should probably run a more defensive skill like Quick Riposte. Her C skill is Dragon Valor, which I believe is new. The Valor skills grant 2 times SP to those type of units, so Summer Young Tiki can help train up new Dragon Emblem recruits. For builds, there is a pretty easy way to take advantage of Tiki's base kit. You can go with a similar idea to the full-on melee physical tank role that Breath of Fog adult Tiki can pull off. Summer's Breath grants a little extra defense and most important, its extra cooldown effect. Swap out her B skill for Quick Riposte, use any C skill you like, and then end with Close Defense. This will also bring Tiki's resistance stat up to the good 34 when fighting other dragons who she has the advantage on. Use Ignis or Bonfire depending on how Summer's Breath works. You want to fire off her special on the second hit from Quick Riposte, and ideally Tiki can avoid a lot of doubles with her great 37 speed. This is just a super simple build taking advantage of Summer's Breath and attack and defense bond. I'm sure Distant Counter and Iota Shield will be popular skills for some Young Tiki, so I want to put something else out there. Since Tiki is so fast, you could try to run a Dark Breath debuffing build using Wind Sweep. It's a pretty rare skill, so if you have no Wind Sweep, then Renewal or Quick Riposte are always good options. I also think Tiki could run Light Breath Plus, which grants +5 to all stats after combat, and this would make Tiki pretty scary to fight, especially if you use a Brazen skill. If you don't want to use Summer's Breath or Lightning Breath, then this version of Tiki has a lot of different options thanks to her good speed stat. Take advantage of it if you want to try something new. That's it for this summer banner breakdown. There wasn't anything really new other than young Tiki's new weapon. We've seen everything else in some other form in the game already. So just like the first summer banner, these 4 units are also all pretty offense heavy. The 3 new inheritable weapons with Desperation built in kinda signifies this. If you want a completely new unit, then Summer Linde is our first Cavalry Dagger user. Summer Takumi has the same offensive stat line of Bride Cordelia, and he's also a flyer. Summer Camilla is by far the best offensive blue mage flyer now, and Summer Young Tiki is our first flying red dragon. Between this banner and the last one, you have the chance to get yourself some really good flying units. Let me know in the comments what you think about each of these new heroes. Personally, while I would like Camilla or Takumi, my goal is to still and try to get Summer Tana, so I will most likely be skipping this banner. That's it for this video, good luck on summoning, and I'll see you in the next one.